Hello and welcome to the November 23rd, 2025 episode of Nick's News. I am your host, Nick, brought to you by Some Budget Studios. That's right, we're putting money into this project of ours. We're live every Sunday, and I thank you all so much for tuning in or catching the replay on the Nick's News YouTube page. This is a program dedicated to bringing good news to counter all of the bad news that we are bombarded with on a daily basis, with the hope of bringing a little bit of joy back to the world. Several of our articles are pulled from sites like goodnewsnetwork.org and goodgoodgood.co, but we appreciate everything sent in by you, the Nick's Newsies. A little bit of a weird start there. I apologize. I got a little flubbed up. Hello, Becky. Hello, Waffle. Thank you very much for joining us. Or Charlie, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Let's get going. Hello, Nico. Let's get started with our news brew. It's going to be a tale of ups and downs as we go from here to the end of the year, and I'm referring to the ABV. Last week we featured a pretty high-octane brew. We're going to bring it down a little bit this year with a can that producer Donna nabbed for me. It's to the point. It is simply known as the Black Lager. This is a Schwarzbier, just as the name says, a black lager. Comes in at 5.0% ABV. It doesn't beat around the bush. It's pretty straightforward. So we are going to enjoy this black lager in our Share a pint glass. Hey, Nico. We've got Nico and Nico. Huh. That's interesting. I didn't see that it was doing that. Well, let's get this cracked open. We don't need the Balisong bottle opener because it's a can. We'll just blow the gain on the audio. Let's get into the theatrics of a 5-minute pour. I tend to go for straight pours because, again, there's a lot of gas in these beers, and I don't want that gas inside me. There's a lot of ales in the world. IPAs, New England IPAs, pale ales, just ales, ales, ales. Table ales, strong ales, Scotch ales. Schwarzbier, black lager, is as the name states. Normally a lager comes in at that nice yellow color, kind of light, kind of airy. This is just straight dark. Oh, wow. I'm not going to recognize anybody's names. Huh. YouTube, why you do this? We'll keep topping this off as we, get through the shout-outs and everything. It smells good. All right, shout-outs. Tesla Tree Service is an environmentally friendly tree service in South Jersey with years of experience, not just with trees, but with getting stuck animals out of them. Animal rescues are always free, and if you haven't checked out their Facebook page, please do so and show Steve and the crew the love and likes they deserve, and along with shares of their business and what they have to offer. We've included their links below in the description of our video, as well as the link to the International Directory of Cat Rescuers, which is really cool. To Steve and everybody involved at Tesla Tree Service, cheers. Hey, Tim. Ooh. Ooh. That's actually a really good Schwarzbier. Wow. Me likey. Top my glass off. Did you know we have an Instagram? We do. Each different Nick's News media source, be it Instagram, TikTok, here on YouTube, or Facebook, all has something unique that you can only find on that platform. For example, on the Instagram, you'll get different news nibbles. That's right, we do news nibbles. You see them on the Facebook page and on the Instagram, and they're different. And there's also sneak peeks of the news brews. Those come out on Thursdays if you want to try to grab the beers I'm having and have one with me. And there's also bonus bug updates that go up on the Instagram, and there's a lot of other like odds and ends that we post on it. So if you're not subscribed to it, consider subscribing to the Knicks News Instagram just to see some behind the scenes stuff, and also get a whole like 3 new Knicks news nibbles a week. So to Donna for getting our Instagram set up. Cheers. Becky says, may the Schwartz be with you. The Schwarzbier. And because this episode is on the 23rd and it is coming up, we would like to extend a happy Thanksgiving to all the Americans, friends, family, and Knicks Newsies that celebrate Thanksgiving. So to all of you, gobble gobble, happy Turkey Day. Cheers. Merchandising. News quote. The bond that links your true family is not one of blood, but of respect and joy in each other's lives. That was from Richard David Bach, who was born in 1936, and as of the taping of this episode, is still with us. He's an American writer. He's best known for Jonathan Livingston Seagull and Illusions, The Adventures of a Reluctant Messiah. And I really like that quote, because thinking about it, we choose our friends and we choose our family. We have that ability as the people of today. Family doesn't have to be by blood. It can be by the people you choose to be the closest ones around you. And so the bond that links your true family is not one of blood, but of respect and joy in each other's lives. So Richard David Bach, cheers. Hey, Julie. Producer Donna said, friends are family you choose for yourself. I like that. Bug update. Ripley's doing great, tapping and scuttling along without issue. I'm really interested to see if Ripley still has another molt in them to get bigger. Like an even bigger Ripley is just bigger nightmare fuel. Cuddle Bugs are great. They're pretty active. Big Tom was crooning for the other members of the Cuddle Bug band. For reference, Big Tom is a Madagascar hissing cockroach that I own. The Cuddle Bugs are 3 other smaller Madagascar hissing roaches that are with him. And he does this thing where he will get up on a stick in the tank there, and he hisses to get their attention. So he's crooning at them at night. Sue has really been active lately. I don't know if it's because Elmira's asleep again. I'm really not sure, but he has been out and about, and when I last checked, he was out of the entrance of his hide. So we'll see if we get him in on an episode again. If so, he's in this vivarium right here, and if he pops up, flood the chat with scorpion emojis or just shout Sue. Christian says, I cannot find a way to toggle between the handles and display names within my own YouTube studio, so we might not have a choice in the matter. Anyways, for posterity's sake, I am Christian. Christian, thank you very much for pointing that out. That is kind of crap that suddenly we've lost the ability to show the... I mean, is it something on my end? Huh. I can look at the participants, but I can't do much else. Like, if I open up the actual control board, I think the controls are the same. Yeah, the control boards are the same. I can't modify it on my end either. Darn YouTube thing. Like producer Donna said, hopefully it'll just be fixed by tomorrow. Let's get into our broadcast. Our Good News broadcast is broken up into 4 major categories, and those categories are Science and Technology, Health and Medicine, Flora and Fauna, aka Plants and Animals, and Wholesome Notes, the really nice articles we like to end on. So we will start tonight off in Category 1, Science and Technology. We've got 2 articles in here, and we call this first one, Gliding to the Rescue. I will copy and paste this into the chat if y'all want to check it out. U.S. Marines test electric sea glider in first real-world rescue mission. This was published to Interesting Engineering on November 20th of 2025 by Kapil Kajal. Regent Craft, the Rhode Island-based developer of Sea Glider maritime aircraft, has completed a new round of rescue demonstrations with the U.S. Marine Corps, validating the platform's potential to support medical evacuation missions in contested coastal environments, the company said Wednesday. The Marine Corps is testing new mobility systems to evaluate how well a sea glider prototype performs in situations where traditional rescue methods struggle due to speed, access, or stability constraints. Marine officials and Regent engineers conducted 3 mission profiles, loading a non-ambulatory patient from a dock, extracting an injured person directly from a beach, and conducting an open water life raft recovery in rougher seas. Regent said the demonstration showed that the craft can rapidly transition between high-speed flight and low-speed sea operations, allowing rescuers to reach casualties, board them directly from the water, and depart without requiring specialized infrastructure. These rescue demonstrations represent significant progress in our Sea Glider prototype test campaign, Regent co-founder and CEO Billy Thalheimer said in a statement. We are proving the Sea Glider vessels can close mission-critical gaps by delivering speed, stability, and safety in environments where traditional platforms fall short. The Sea Glider is designed to operate in 3 modes: a hull-borne vessel, as a hydrofoil craft lifted above the water's surface, and as a wing-in-ground effect aircraft flying roughly 30 feet above the waves. I'm suddenly thinking of Tailspin for some reason. In ground effect mode, its aerodynamic efficiency increases significantly, enabling higher speeds and longer range while staying close to the sea surface. Regent's military variant, known as the Viceroy, is expected to cruise at up to 160 knots, or about 180 miles per hour, and carry roughly 3,500 pounds of payload, and travel up to 1,400 nautical miles in hybrid form. The company says the large cabin can be configured with litters, medical equipment, and mission gear for medevac and casevac operations. During the recent trials, marine evaluators examined how quickly the craft could approach survivors, maintain stability during patient loading, and accelerate back into takeoff. Regent said the prototype maintained precise control during close-quarters maneuvering, a challenge for helicopters in high winds or for boats operating in surf zones, so it's pretty much the best of both worlds. That's pretty cool. Maritime medevac and casevac are among the most demanding missions in the military, said Tom Huntley, general manager of Regent Defense and a former rescue helicopter pilot. The Marine Corps challenged us with real-world scenarios, and the Sea Glider prototype performed exceptionally. These demonstrations underscore how Sea Glider vessels can help keep service members safe and get them to higher levels of care when they need it most. The Marine Corps has been evaluating alternative mobility platforms as part of its modernization towards smaller, more distributed forces operating in littoral regions. Boats can be limited by their relatively slow top speeds, and helicopters often face availability, range, or weather-related constraints. Marine planners say an aircraft that can land on water, pick up casualties directly, and depart at high speed could reduce evacuation times across wide maritime areas. Earlier this year, the Marine Corps Warfighting Lab expanded its development contract with Regent to $15 million, signaling continued interest in the program. The recent rescue demonstrations form part of a broader test campaign as the Sea Glider moves toward operational assessment. These tests show how Sea Glider vessels can bring life-saving capability to the places that need it most, Thalheimer said, and bring our warfighters home safely. To Regent and the Marine Corps for testing out a new rescue vehicle, a Sea Glider, that's actually really neat. Cheers. Uh-oh. Producer Donna has an update. YouTube is showing your handle, the @identifier, instead of your name in many places such as live chats, comments, and shorts, because this is part of a platform-wide change. They are trying to counter impersonation and spam. Well, darn. That's too bad. We're just going to have to work out who's who. I'm going to have to do a better job of memorizing everybody's ats now. Alright, we called this next one Ready Player One Half. I'll copy and paste this into the chat. New wearable device lets you touch fabric online, read Braille, and more. This was published to Popular Science on November 22nd of 2025 by Mac Dugurin. A time traveler visiting from an earlier era might reasonably conclude that humanity has entered the age of cyborgs and cybernetics. Pedestrians regularly walk down city streets with tiny computers in their hands and even smaller digital devices shoved in their ear canals. Virtual reality headsets, though still bulky, can transport users to convincingly realistic digital versions of faraway museums and long-past historical events. And yet, despite all this technology, people today still can't really feel what it's like to touch objects in their digital worlds. A team of engineers from Northwestern University is trying to change that with the introduction of a new bandage-like finger wearable. The ultra-thin haptic device called Voxlight wraps around a user's finger, any finger will work, and sends electric pulses through a grid of round nodes that function like a computer screen's pixels for the sensation of touch. According to the team, the result is a device capable of adding physical sensations of touch and feel to digital experiences. Additionally, trial participants reportedly experienced human resolution in digital spaces. Smartphone users wearing Voxlight could theoretically scroll over a sweater on Instagram and feel the texture of the fabric. Gamers in virtual reality could also use the wearable to sense the tightening tension of a bowstring or the slick surface of a well-lacquered doorknob. The finger wearables open more practical doors as well. In theory, the added sensation of touch in virtual worlds could help people with visual impairments navigate apps more easily. Details of the device are described this week in a study published in the journal Science Advances. I wish it was called Science Adventures because this is quite the adventure. I'm most excited to see what entirely new forms of digital communication, interaction, and experience we can create together once we have access to a new sensing modality, Northwestern PhD student Sylvia Tan tells Popular Science. The examples in the paper are things we can easily imagine, but to me, those are just the starting points. Just as advances in visual and audio technologies reshaped our day-to-day lives, I'm excited to see how advancements in touch will transform it further. Digital audio and visual realism has advanced rapidly in recent decades, but the same can't be said for so-called digital touch. With only a few scattered exceptions, the sense of touch when interacting with the digital world relies almost exclusively on varying levels of vibration. That works well enough for certain applications, but it pales in comparison to the nuance and richness the human finger experiences when touching objects in the real world. Researchers call the sensation the skin's temporal resolution. Modern vibration-based technology, by contrast, has a low spatial resolution. So low, in fact, that it could be compared to watching jittery old movies with extremely low frame rates. Despite its central role in how we perceive, navigate, and connect with the world, we lack a meaningful way to create realistic digital touch, researchers write in the paper. To get critical touch closer to the real thing, researchers had to rethink how the device would fundamentally work. They created a grid of tiny nodes positioned 1.6 millimeters apart directly beneath a user's fingertips. Each node consists of a soft rubber dome with a conductive outer layer and an electrode inside. When a slight voltage is applied, the nodes generate electroadhesion, the same effect that makes a balloon stick to a wall after it's been rubbed. To the user, this translates into a sensation of friction or a gripping sensation. Higher voltages create the feeling of rougher surfaces, and together these nodes referred to the team as pixels of touch combine to produce complex illusions of texture and physical sensation. Spacing the nodes at the right distance was particularly challenging. If they're too close together, the body can't distinguish one from another. Too far apart, and the device won't register enough sensation to feel realistic. The largest challenges and trade-offs we had were purely from fabrication challenges, Tan says. Our current methods allow us to reach 1mm spacings, but any smaller would require the use of high-precision machines that we currently do not have access to. The device's form factor is intentionally light, weighing less than an ounce or a gram. The researchers who designed it say that they wanted a wearable that is haptically transparent, meaning a person doesn't need to remove it while interacting with the physical world. In theory, someone could slip on their Vox light and go about their day normally, with the option of experiencing digital touch at any time. Vox light, trust us with your digital touch. The device is also thin enough to avoid distracting users while they complete other tasks. Tan says that they ideally envision the device functioning similarly to eyeglasses, which people wear throughout the day. So far, the finger wearable appears to be working as intended. In a pair of experiments, study participants were asked to slip on the Vox light and identify different sensations of direction. When asked to distinguish up, down, left, and right, participants wearing the device answered correctly 87% of the time. In a separate test, participants were asked to identify fabric textures such as leather, corduroy, and terry cloth, and they answered correctly 81% of the time. These findings position Voxlight as a platform for human resolution haptics and immersive interfaces, robotics, and digital touch communication, the researchers write in the paper. The wearable is still in its early stages, and likely won't be shipping as a phone accessory anytime soon. Eventually, the team hopes to develop a system that works on multiple fingers simultaneously, but that will require optimized routing architectures and alternative fabrication strategies that are not yet in place. It's also unclear how even a single finger wearable will perform after extended use in real-world environments, where it could be exposed to dirt, debris, or other variables that might cause damage. One variable it does seem to fare well against is moisture. Tan says they didn't experience issues with sweat exposure. In cases where the device gets totally submerged in water, Tan said the device will work again after being air-dried. Still, the findings point to a possible future where interacting with digital environments may feel noticeably more realistic and personal. The blurred line between person and machine keeps getting hazier. To everybody at Northwestern University and to Voxlight, trust us with your digital sensations. Cheers. I have been enjoying season 2 of Has Been Hotel, and I love that quote from Vox. All right, that's going to get us out of Category 1, Science and Technology. We're going to move on to Category 2, Health and Medicine. And we've got 2 articles in this section. We call this first one, The Jitters Means It's Working. I will copy and paste this into the chat if y'all want to be reading along or want to check it out. Doctors astounded. Long-held belief about coffee and heart rhythm was wrong. This was published to SciTech Daily on November 19th of 2025 by the University of California, San Francisco. In a surprising finding, the first randomized clinical trial revealed that drinking a cup of coffee each day reduces the risk of atrial fibrillation. Regular coffee consumption may actually help protect against atrial fibrillation, or AFib, a common heart rhythm problem that causes a fast, irregular heartbeat and can increase the risk of stroke or heart failure. Although people with heart conditions such as AFib are often told to avoid caffeine because it might worsen symptoms, new research suggests the opposite may be true. A collaborative study conducted by the University of California, San Francisco, and the University of Adelaide found that drinking 1 cup of caffeinated coffee per day lowered the risk of AFib by 39%. Coffee increases physical activity, which is known to reduce atrial fibrillation, said Gregory M. Marcus, MD, MAS, who holds the endowed professorship in atrial fibrillation research and is an electrophysiologist at UCSF Health. Marcus is the senior author of the paper, which was published on November 9th in JAMA. Caffeine is also diuretic, which could potentially reduce blood pressure and in turn lessen AFib risk. Several other ingredients in coffee also have anti-inflammatory properties that could have positive effects. Cases of atrial fibrillation have been rising steadily alongside increases in obesity and an aging population. More than 10 million adults in the United States have been diagnosed with AFib, and experts estimate that up to 1 in 3 people may develop it over their lifetime. That's no good. The research team titled their project Decaf, short for Does Eliminating Coffee Avoid Fibrillation? It is the first randomized clinical trial designed to examine the relationship between caffeinated coffee and AFib. The study received support from the National Institutes of Health. The study enrolled 200 coffee-drinking patients with persistent atrial fibrillation, or a related condition called atrial flutter, along with a history of AFib. They were scheduled for electrical cardioversion, which gives a single electrical shock to shift the heart into a normal rhythm. They were randomly assigned either to consume at least 1 cup of caffeinated coffee or an espresso shot each day, or abstain from coffee and other products that can contain caffeine for 6 months. I would not have survived. The group that consumed coffee had a 39% lower risk of recurrent AFib episodes. In addition to its anti-inflammatory effects, researchers speculated that drinking coffee might also reduce the risk of AFib simply by making people consume fewer unhealthy beverages. So there's actually a lot going on with this. The results were astounding, said first author Christopher X. Wong, PhD at UCSF and the University of Adelaide and Royal Adelaide Hospital. Doctors have always recommended that patients with problematic AFib minimize their coffee intake, but this trial suggests that coffee is not only safe, but likely to be protective. That's really cool. To everybody involved in a study at the University of California, San Francisco, and what was the second one? University of Adelaide, for figuring out that a coffee a day might be able to help folks with AFib. Cheers. And calling the study Decaf really is. Producer Donna said great name. It really is a great name. Like, sometimes there are those little gemstones. That's one of them. Producer Donna says, I would have survived on no caffeine, but no one around me would have. Yeah, I wouldn't either. Alright, we called this next one Pick Point Alleviates a Pain Point. And I will copy and paste this into the chat for anybody that wants to check it out. This vending machine dispenses free prescription drugs to people facing homelessness. This was published at goodgoodgood.co on November 14th of 2025 by Cameron Baker. For people experiencing homelessness, illness, and disability are especially prevalent. According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, unhoused individuals are at increased risk for both infection and non-infectious diseases, such as viral hepatitis, HIV, tuberculosis, COVID-19, and more. Chronic conditions like mental illness, substance use disorder, diabetes, and heart and lung diseases are also more likely among the homeless population. But when basic needs like safe shelter and health care are inaccessible, it can be increasingly difficult for an already vulnerable community to find and receive treatment for these conditions. In Colorado, the Colorado Coalition for the Homeless has a number of community health centers and interventions specifically designed to meet the needs of homeless individuals. And a new program might streamline that support even more. The Colorado Coalition for the Homeless 48th Street Health Center now has a new way for clients to access commonly prescribed medications, just steps away from their shelter, a social media video for the nonprofit shared. It's called a pick-point remote dispensing machine, and it's essentially a vending machine for prescription medications. This innovative system provides quick access to medications such as inhalers, lidocaine, laxatives, nicotine patches, and anti-inflammatories, the video continued. Clients simply meet with a provider at the health clinic and get a prescription for what they need. Then they are able to use that prescription to access their medication from the vending machine. For those who may be moving from place to place, this quick access helps ensure they receive the care and medication they need without delay, the organization shared. Everything is central to one location, so someone doesn't have to visit a separate pharmacy or provider to get the support they need. While it's unclear if the medication in the machine is provided for free, the health center is reportedly funded through the Federal CARES Act, as well as Denver's Department of Housing Stability, to address homelessness and housing. The Colorado Coalition for the Homeless maintains all operating costs, but pays zero rent or utilities for the facility. The city of Denver paid for all recent upgrades to the property, an informational document from the nonprofit shared. The Pick Point machine has also been installed thanks to support from the McKesson Corporation and Colorado Access, which provides Medicaid and CHIP benefits to residents. Although the machine was just installed and shared with the community, representatives of the organization appear to be optimistic that it will improve outcomes for the shelter's clients. And it's a welcome innovation for anyone in need of medical care, social media followers say. I have a home and still struggle to manage picking up my meds with my job hours. I can't imagine all the other barriers, a TikTok commenter wrote. This is such an incredible idea and will change many lives. And Anne-Marie, my Aunt Anne, hello Aunt Anne, says, yes, the medicine will be free. That is amazing. Thank you for checking in. That is really cool. To everybody involved with the Colorado Coalition for the Homeless and all of the organizations that have come together to provide a pick point, which is basically a vending machine to provide prescriptions for homeless individuals or those struggling through times of homelessness. Cheers. That is really neat. Okay. So that gets us out of health and medicine. We're going to move on to category 3, flora and fauna, aka plants and animals. We've got one article in this one, and we called it the most beautiful kind of graffiti. And I will copy and paste this into the chat if y'all want to check it out. To reduce vandalism, these communities installed vertical living walls that double as pollinator gardens. This was published on November 17th of 2025 to goodgoodgood.co by Cameron Baker. And of course, producer Donna says, Charlie, Nick won't let me get a Nick's News raccoon. If you check out producer Donna's Facebook page, you will see that producer Donna is a druid, and she attracts wildlife as though she was a Disney princess. And I am absolutely refusing to have a raccoon be the mascot of Nick's News. Moving on. Walk through any city in the United States, and you'll find concrete walls and chain link fences with privacy slats covered in spray-painted graffiti. Sometimes these quirks are a communal display of public art and creativity, but other times they're just plain vulgar or disrespectful. What if those walls could be transformed instead into a bountiful bursting pollinator garden? company Habitat Horticulture developed the meadow wall for this very reason. Just down the street from Habitat Horticulture's headquarters, a newly built fence along the Greenway bike path was quickly covered in graffiti, a statement from the company shared. Rather than let the wall become a lasting eyesore, we saw an opportunity to showcase the potential of Meadow Wall, our pre-seeded panel system designed to turn blank vertical surfaces into biodiverse meadows. The green wall system includes individual panels that are seeded with native wildflowers and grasses. It was easily installed atop the chain link fence near the company's Berkeley, California headquarters. As it grows, it transforms an ordinary walkway into a vertical meadow, the brand shared in a social media video. A vital connection to nature for people and pollinators alike. In total, Habitat Horticulture covered 1,500 square feet of fence with the meadow wall panels and saw a transformation within just weeks. Chat is now blowing up over the raccoon. Apparently the raccoon has 5.5k new friends. His name is going to be Marketing. Yes, the raccoon's name will be Marketing. There's a rather large murder of crows, says Charlie. Jeez. Y'all are a bunch of Disney princesses. The surface transformed into a living tapestry for seasonal color and texture, providing habitat for pollinators, filtering the air, and softening urban noise, the company wrote on its website. What was once a target for graffiti is now a vibrant, dynamic landscape that engages passerby and demonstrates how even the most utilitarian surfaces can become ecological assets. Habitat Horticulture doesn't just use the meadow wall for its own purposes, but installs these green walls in locations around the world. While many clients install the meadow walls in interior spaces, like office buildings or apartment lobbies, outdoor projects like those on college campuses and on the exterior of an urban building in San Francisco's Tenderloin neighborhood, they bring green oases to often plant-free spaces. Straddling the corner of the building, the wall appears almost like a sentient being, contrasting the angular architecture with lush, soft plantings, a description for the Tenderloin design stated. As both an artistic statement and a tool for urban revitalization, the installation helps enliven the neighborhood while showing how thoughtful design and greenery can transform even the densest city spaces. The innovative approach isn't just intended to beautify unsightly places. Cost-effective and requiring minimal maintenance, the meadow wall uses seeds instead of fully rooted plants, which cost roughly 30% less for installation. It also provides habitats for local bees, birds, butterflies, and other pollinators, all while reducing sound from traffic and other noise pollution by an average of 15 decibels. Lastly, the green walls trap particulate matter on the leaves of plants, which capture construction dust and filter out chemicals from car exhaust. Easy to install and maintain, Meadow Wall offers a sustainable, visually stunning way to enhance urban spaces, communicate environmental commitment, and deter graffiti. Habitat Horticulture describes of the wall. Experience the beauty of nature with Meadow Wall, where every wall can become a blooming meadow. Almost sounded like an advertisement for them, but it really is cool, and it really is a change of pace to be able to put up a meadow wall. These things look awesome, and like they state, it's all just normal grasses and wildflowers, so it's fantastic for pollinators. To everybody at Habitat Horticulture for designing the meadow wall. Cheers. All right, that's going to take us out of flora and fauna. We're going to move on to category 4, the wholesome notes. And we've got some good ones here, folks. So we're going to start off with our first wholesome note. And we pulled a quote out of the article. It goes, "Swords to plowshares." I will copy and paste this into the chat if y'all want to read along. And I will also preface this. We go to pretty, we try to be unbiased here on Nick's News. It is something we have strived for because we believe in the non-biased nature of reporting. But reporting good news can sometimes have some biases in it, and we acknowledge that. So wherever you sit on the for the United States on the Second Amendment conversations going on, I still think that this article is really respectful and is really telling of the good things that can come about even from tragedy. So the nationwide movement turning guns into garden tools. This was published in Reasons to be Cheerful on November 20th of 2025 by Michaela Haas. The first time Mike Martin held an AK-47 was after the 2012 shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary in Connecticut, which claimed the lives of 20 children and 6 adults. The shooting shocked a friend of a friend, a lawyer, into questioning why he owned an AK-47 in the first place. He decided to destroy that one, Martin recalls. As a Mennonite youth and young adult pastor, Martin had long contemplated the idea of interpreting the swords to plowshares ideal from the book of Isaiah in a modern context. Hey, Nate. My faith tradition is rooted in peace and nonviolence, he says. Together with his father and the lawyer, Martin took the AK-47 to a nearby blacksmith in Colorado Springs, dismantled it, and forged the metal into a shovel and a rake. There's this thing about turning guns into garden tools, Martin reflects in the book Beating Guns. You have to add some heat, a little more than 2,000 degrees of controlled flame. This moment sparked the beginning of Raw Tools, or war spelled backwards, a non-profit that Martin now runs full-time, and a movement spanning 4 states with affiliates in Buffalo, New York, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and Asheville, North Carolina. Since its humble beginnings 14 years ago, Raw Tools has destroyed and repurposed more than 6,000 guns, forging them into garden tools and art. Martin now carries the trigger of the first Kalashnikovs he destroyed on a keyring, while books about gun violence and art collages made from weapons parts line his walls. For Martin, the physical act of destroying a gun can be healing, but often it's just the beginning of a bigger conversation. The dominant culture often tells us that we can't escape the violence, so we should therefore join the violence, he says. Instead, this counter-story of turning swords into plows insists that violence is the problem, not the solution. Anybody can fill out a form on the Raw Tools website or respond to the buyback program Guns to Gardens and arrange to donate their gun in exchange for a grocery card. A national network of hundreds of volunteers, blacksmiths, woodworkers, and artists will even pick up firearms from donors' homes. Sometimes people have 30 or 40 guns that they inherited, and they don't want to bring all that into the public space, or they might feel unsafe transporting a gun, Martin says. Donors often want to be involved in transforming the weapon into a force for good. We've had veterans, police chiefs, grandmothers, and little kids take part in the action, Martin recalls. Hunters, too, have been some of the best allies, he adds. Gun owners don't want gun violence either. His work is not about demonizing gun owners, but about saving lives and working with everyone who is committed to that. Raw Tools regularly holds events, especially in front of churches and synagogues, not only to collect and transform guns, but to start conversations, listening and hearing from local folks impacted by gun violence. Families who donate heirloom firearms can have them turned into multiple tools, keepsakes that honor the family member without perpetuating the weapon's violent potential. The hard thing about transforming a life, like transforming metal, is that it requires work, sweat, heat, and constant attention, Martin says. At least once a month, someone who has lost a loved one to suicide reaches out to Raw Tools. Suicide by gun is responsible for more than half, or 58%, of all gun deaths in the U.S., according to the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. In 2024, gun suicide reached a record high of almost 27,600 deaths. Often, survivors are forced to retrieve the firearm from police themselves, sometimes in states where law prohibits police from destroying confiscated guns. The family might ask the police to put it in their own trunk, and then we take it out for them so they don't have to handle it at all, Martin says. We're very mindful of practices that bring healing and minimize any triggering. When the weapon is destroyed, Martin often notices a palpable relief in survivors. You see a release of tension in their bodies, and better breathing, and they might open up and tell their story, Martin says. Some request that the metal be forged into something meaningful, and Raw Tools may host a ceremony to honor the loss. A mobile blacksmith setup similar to what a farrier might use going to farms to work on horseshoes allows Raw Tools to meet people where they are. For instance, a client who had lost 2 family members to suicide by firearm wanted to be part of the destruction. Raw Tools forged the weapons into a shovel that was used at a community ceremony for planting trees in honor of people lost to suicide in the region. Martin lost his own mother to suicide when he was 15 years old. While no firearm was involved, guns in the home delayed paramedics from entering. Martin's dad had hunting rifles and other weapons. Martin doesn't know if his mother could have been saved if the first responders had reached her sooner, but I share this story because I want people to see what kind of lengths people will go to make it okay to own guns. Today, all his father's guns are garden tools, and his father is one of Raw Tools' strongest supporters. Unlike other buyback programs, giving up a gun is not the end goal of Raw Tools, but a starting point. Martin and his crew offer de-escalation courses in schools and communities. His wife, Hannah Rose, still a Mennonite pastor, recently published a children's book called Sparking Peace, which introduces kids to the concepts of transforming conflict through acts of peace. Martin sees the book as an entryway for adults, caregivers, and parents to have a conversation with kids about gun violence. At a recent event in Buffalo, the couple read from the book and invited a local mother who had lost family to gun violence and started a community garden as a space for healing. Together, the group went to the anvil Martin and his wife had brought with them, and people had the opportunity to be part of making garden tools from discarded weapons. After the 2022 mass shooting at Club Q, a gay bar in Colorado Springs, community members donated firearms they had inherited for the healing of the queer community. Martin led a group of LGBTQ youths in creating art and tools from the pieces. Martin finds the practice healing for himself too. Many times I just get angry after a shooting or some piece of legislation, he admits. That stuff really gets under my skin, and sometimes it's helpful to just go to the anvil and hit on the hot metal. So Nate asked a really good question. Just to clarify, they specifically provide a method to destroy guns used in a tragedy for closure or to eliminate private gun ownership. So from what we're getting from the article, they are not out to eliminate private gun ownership. They are out to, if a person has a firearm and wants to give it up and have it turned into a new use, they do that, and it's also for healing and for closure. They aren't advocating for the end of private gun ownership. They're not saying everybody should give up their guns. They're just saying if you want to, there's something else you can do with them, and that's sometimes turning them into garden tools or art, which is really neat. Nate says, I like it. The U.S. still has more guns than people, about 120 firearms per 100 residents, and it's easier to buy a gun than to get rid of one. Sometimes it can feel really overwhelming, Martin admits. Critics might question the impact of removing a handful of guns when a new one is manufactured every 3 seconds. His answer? Every firearm taken out of circulation reduces risk, and every event is a chance for healing. He sees particular power in faith communities taking a stand. It not only signals that the community is a safe space to donate firearms, but also a safe space to talk about this. In rural areas, where some equate safety with gun ownership, he begins with shared values. We all want to feel safe, he says, before exploring how community can provide that safety better than the rugged American ideal of individualism. That's going to be a hard pill to swallow, but I see where they're coming from. Martin also uses these events as an opportunity to talk about all the things that fall apart when someone gets to the point where suicide feels like the only option left. Usually there's something at work, something relational, something financial, or a medical diagnosis, or all of those at once. We're really vulnerable folks, and that can be any of us. On rare occasions, hecklers disturb his events. Martin diffuses tensions by connecting on common ground, often through the topic of suicide prevention. Martin recounts an event where a gun supporter yelled that Christians needed their weapons to prepare for the end of times, but quieted down when the mother of a son who had died by suicide recounted how difficult it was to pick up the firearm her son had used. People are still willing to listen, Martin acknowledges. Martin is well aware that of solutions that have proven to lower gun violence, including background checks, but his organization largely stays clear of political activism and focuses on survivor and community support. The nonprofit's mission is not about legislation or politics, but about shifting culture, one weapon, one heart, one community at a time. The act of destruction is also an act of creation, Martin says. We're not just changing metal, we're changing people. That is really nice. To Mike Martin and everybody involved with raw tools, transforming firearms into art, garden tools, and other means to help with healing after tragic events. Cheers. All right, last article of the night. We called this one, It's Never Too Late to Surprise Yourself. And I will copy and paste this into the chat if y'all want to check it out. Better to try and fail than not to try it at all. 100-year-old says age has nothing on trying something new. This was published to CTV News on November 19th of 2025 by CNN. It's never too late to try something new. That might be a phrase you tell yourself when thinking about starting a new hobby, or when you fail to. A man living in an Overland Park assisted living community lives by that phrase. My bucket list is getting lower and lower, and I've had a pretty exciting life, really, said Jerry Stevenson, a painter. Stevenson turns 100 years old on Tuesday, November 18th. And although it was only 15 years ago that he found his life's hobby, art. At age 85, my wife had thought, well, it's time we went to a retirement facility, he said. She wanted a place where they could live the rest of their lives slowly, but that wasn't a word in Jerry's vocabulary. Art in the purest form that is hard to resist, he said. A fellow resident convinced Jerry to pick up a paintbrush, and with a few brush strokes, he crossed art off his bucket list. I'd wear out just painting, but because you get so involved and concentrated, Stevenson said. Another old saying goes, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and Jerry has one that is priceless. My favorite, though, right here, that's my wife, he said of one of his works. For Stevenson, a life well lived is a life without regrets. He said he thinks young, and that means there's no limit to what he can do. I asked him if he ever wished he had started painting earlier in life. His answer was no. I don't. That's my life's history now, he said. As he's watched history unfold around him for a century, he's learned to never say never and never say no, unless it's about sharing the secret to life. If I told you, it wouldn't be a secret, Stevenson said. He also learned that even at 100 years old, it's never too late to surprise yourself. I had no idea I had such talent and ability. It goes to show we have unknown capability, Stevenson said. At 100 years old, as of November 18th, and going strong, and figuring out he wanted to become a painter. That's amazing. To Jerry Stevenson and his wife. Cheers. Art says, or not Art, sorry, Nate says, for the people who say art has no value, a need often overlooked is purpose, and art gave that man purpose. I love it. I love it too, Nate. Well, that's it for tonight. 7 amazing articles, wrapping up with Jerry Stevenson, a 100-year-old who proved it's never too late to start something new and became an artist. Thank you all again for tuning in or catching the replay on the Nix News YouTube page. We're live every Sunday, and our next episode is going to be on November 30th of 2025. We encourage participation, so if you feel inclined, you can send us ideas, you can post suggestions or ideas for news brews, shoutouts, news quotes, and especially good news articles that we can show on future episodes of our broadcast. You can message us on Facebook or Instagram or email us at somebudgetstudios@gmail.com. Links are in the description of the video. Feel free to like, subscribe, or comment on our content on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and especially YouTube videos so we can continue to get good news and this Hope Course stuff we do out into the algorithm. I really can't thank you all enough. You guys continue to drive Nix News and continue to drive our growth. We do minimal advertising. It's mostly word of mouth. Keep letting folks know we're on every Sunday. Let folks know about, all of our other stuff. I really can't thank you all enough for all the help. If you're going to contact us with SEO improvements or advertising, we're not interested right now. We've gotten a couple offers and it's all been pretty trash. So unless it's something actually serious, we're not interested. As always, thank you again. I love you all. You have a great night, and I will play us out.